Okay, so before we did lists, we looked at all the different angles that matter most to us right now. Now we're going to switch our focus over to dictionaries. We have an employees dictionary created here. As you can see with the comment, I've explained what the key value pairs contain. The keys are integer IDs and the values are names. Now, one thing to note is each of these IDs is a 6-digit number. Think of how your student ID is a 9-digit number. Same kind of principle. So we're going to use this information to do some dictionary operations. So our first operation here is to create a list of email addresses formatted as first name dot last name followed by ID. And we're going to just call it @company.co. Just a generic domain. So, some constraints to think about. The ID portion of the email address should not include the leading 1 or zeros that follow. So if we come back up here and we look, ID 100001. We only want this 1. If we had a 23 at the end of this, if it was 100023, then we would include only the 23. So we're going to have to do some math to make this work. So, the first thing we want to do is create an empty list called emails. Create an empty list with just a pair of square brackets. Now, in order to iterate over a dictionary, just like iterating over a list, you want to use a for loop. And we will be using for key in employees, colon. And now we're going to create a string. We'll say address, or better yet, email address. We'll set this to an empty string. And now we're going to do some string concatenation to make this work. So the first thing we want to do is put the name in the email address. So to do that is we take, let's grab name equals employees subkey. Now we need to format the name portion. We need to do a dot lower to put everything in lowercase. And now we dot replace, because we look up at our requirement here, we need first name period last name. So we have employees subkey dot lower dot replace, and we're going to replace spaces with dots. Okay? Now we need the number. So the way we do that is ID num equals string, and we say key modulus 100,000, and this is going to shave it down to just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever numbers happen to follow. If your ID number is 102695, then the 10 would be cut off by this, leaving only 2695. So we have for key in employees. We create an empty string. We're going to concatenate our information into that. We have a name that is assigned to employees subkey that will give us the value related to that key. We're casting it to lowercase, and then we're replacing the space between the first and last name with a dot. We have our ID num, and that's going to be equal to a string of key mod 100,000. Now let's concatenate. Email, oops, address plus equals name plus ID num plus at company.co. Now emails.append email address. And now that we are done, email address. Well, not email address, emails. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Now, let's try this again. I did try a different example, but it didn't work because, and this is important to note, when you have a dictionary and you are iterating over it, you cannot change keys in the process of iteration, or you risk an infinite loop, so Python just says, okay, I'm not going to let you do that at all. So, run this again, and we have john.snow1 at company.co, alexis.matthews2 at company.co, bryant.homer3, Tanya.Davis4, and Ashley.Stancil5. All right, so this example should make perfect sense. Let's move on to example 2. For each name, prompt the user to input a middle name. Add this information to the dictionary. Now, there are multiple ways we could do this. We could use split to break the name up into a list of names, put the middle name as element 1 and last name as element 2, and then join them back together. I have another way. So, everything is currently formatted as first space last. So what if we replace the space with the middle name? All right, so for key in employees, we're going to say, actually we can do this all on one line. Let's be fancy. We're going to say employees sub key equals employees sub key. We're going to change this. We're going to say employees sub key equals employees sub key dot replace. We're going to replace the space with, actually, before we do this, let's, no, it's going to be messy if we try to be fancy about it. So we're going to say middle name, and we're going to set that to equals, or set that to a space plus input, enter a middle name, plus another space. And now we're going to replace the space with middle name. Okay, so for each key, we're going to create a middle name that is an input with spaces around it. So now with that change, we're going to print employees to verify that we have made something that works. Okay, so for John Snow, let's say Alan. For Alexis Matthews, we'll say just random names. Bryant Samuel, Tanya Lauren, and Ashley, why not Michael? And now let's see this printed out. We see it doesn't quite work like we wanted it to, because now there is no space between middle and last name. Let's try fixing that. That should work. I don't understand what's going on. Oh, that's what's going on. Missed a closing parenthesis. Try this again. So, we'll use the same names from before. Alan. What? Oh. What happened? Oh. Syntax error. Unmatched parenthesis. Where? What? Oh. I'm silly. I am disoriented this morning for some reason, but it is okay. Let's try this again. Okay, so Alan for Alexis, Tina, Samuel, Lauren, and Michael. There we go, much better. So let's run through this again because of my mistakes. So for each key in employees, we're going to create a middle name. We're going to assign it to an input for middle name from the user plus spaces on either side. We're then going to take employees subkey, the value we're currently working with. We're going to set it to itself dot replace. We're going to replace the space between first and last name with our middle name string. And that will give us a new dictionary with first, middle, and last name. Now, the last thing we're going to do, and let's remove this here because now we're going to print it meaningfully. So we don't need the raw print. Okay? So, how do we go about printing a dictionary? Well, generally speaking, you want to put it all together into a single string and then print the string. So, we're going to say toString equals an empty string, not a space, an empty string. Now we're going to say for key value in employees.items now we're going to say pardon me, toString plus equals employee number plus string key plus colon space plus value. And now, just so that we get everything on different lines, we're going to then append a new line to this. And then that's all we have to do. Print toString. So again, going over it, for each key and value in employees.items, we add to our toString variable, we add the string employee number plus a stringification of the key, that being our ID number, plus a colon and a space, plus the name, plus new line, so that we get each one on their own line. So, once again, we'll see what this looks like. run this. Let's just go with the same names from before. Alan, Tina, Samuel, Lauren, and Michael. And now we see employee number 10001, John Allen Snow. Employee 10002, Alexis Tina Matthews. Employee number 3, 100003, Bryant Samuel Homer. And so on and so forth. So that's our three simplest dictionary operations. Let's actually come up here, and we're going to add to the dictionary. As a matter of fact, let's prompt the user to enter a name. Add his name to the dictionary with a unique key. This key should follow the existing scheme. So, we're going to say name equals input is first and last name. We're going to assume the user will do this correctly. Now, to create a new key in a dictionary, an entirely new key, all you do is set that key to a given value. Python will do what Python will do is if it does not find that key to change, it will just make a new key. So, to make a new key, all you do is say employees sub, and then we'll say new ID equals name. And how do we get new ID? Let's make a new ID. So, new ID equals len employees plus 100,000. Whoops. There we go. How you would do this, you have to use a little critical thinking. So how do we know that we do len employees plus 100,000? Well, we know, actually we would do 1,001, because if we were to take the len of this, we would get 5. The next key in this scheme would be 100006, which is the length plus 100,000 plus 1. So we're just going to see this one work, and then we'll see what it does with the other info. So let's just add my name. All right. So now, hey, ScarlettMaddox6 at company.co. All right. So middle names, let's say Alan, Tina, Samuel, Lauren, Michael. Obviously, this here is not very good form because we would want to show the name we're currently working with in our string. So you would want to say enter a middle name for Jon Snow, etc. All right, and now we see our meaningful print has given us the correct ID and the correct name. So it's a lot to take in with dictionaries. Again, I encourage you to study lots and practice lots. I'll post these examples on Canvas. And of course, if you have any questions, just reach out. So this is going to do us for collections. Think of this as like a break, because our code complexity hasn't really grown. We're just working with new data sets. When we come back next week, we're really going to kick things into high gear, because we're talking about building our own functions. This is where our code complexity starts to hit a fever pitch. So it's important that you take your time and you study. So stay tuned.